All right, this is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Through another exciting episode for you. And I'm on the beautiful island of the Big Island here in Hawaii. I'm in a beautiful farm here, all kinds of naturally delicious fruits and vegetables growing all over the place. And the reason for this episode is I got a very special guest. This is Dr. Jana Bogues, and she wrote this book, actually, Beyond Organic Growing for Maximum Nutrition and Flavor. And actually, it's a funny story, actually, is I was actually in a local health food store buying some health foods and natural produce and stuff before I could get out to my friend's farm and get the best stuff. But I saw this book and it piqued my interest, and it interested me because, you know, what I try to teach to you guys is beyond organic. You know, they have that organic certification. I know many of you guys might be going down to the health food store like I was and buying organic produce and think, you're getting the best, I'm getting the best, I'm getting the organic stuff, I'm paying the most money, so it's got to be the best. And, you know, I try to teach you guys that even organic stuff, it's probably not the best because you could definitely grow it better at home. But more importantly, if you grow it at home, you got to do certain practices to ensure that you grow the highest quality stuff. And that's why I really like that Dr. Jana Bogues here, because actually she started out as a nutritionist, not as a person with a PhD in soil and growing plants and all this kind of stuff. But she really learned as a nutritionist how important the quality of the food we eat, not only the foods that we're eating, and we're eating nutrient-dense foods, foods that have a lot of nutrition and phytochemicals and phytonutrients that are going to prevent and ward off disease, you know, but also low calories. But even with that, you can be quite deficient by eating standard conventional food from the store. So I called her up. I got her in an interview for you guys because this is super important. You're going to probably want to definitely buy her book because we're not going to be able to cover her whole book, which is like over 100 pages, really nice and easy, large print, nice diagrams so you guys could follow it along, so you guys could really hone in and dial in and grow the highest quality food for you and your family, because simply, you know, the industry is not doing that for you. So, Dr. Bogues, can you tell me more about, you as a nutritionist, and before actually you got into growing food, and how important it is to eat good food, and what is that the highest quality food that we should be eating is for people?
Yeah, so I started off, like many of us do, eating the standard American diet, which has a lot of sugar and junk, and had dental cavities, had mercury fillings, had some health problems when I was a child, and saw my grandparents and all these problems with the family. So I started getting interested in nutrition and decided to go into that for my undergraduate work. And so also did holistic type schooling too, and wanted to really understand what is the best nutrition for us. And so I've continued on this whole track for many years, and then I came to realize that the foods that we have, even if they're grown organically, are not what they could or should be, or even what they once were. And so we need to go back to the soil and grow it up the right way. So I've taken a scientific approach, doing extensive testing of the soil, extensive testing of the plant leaf tissue, and the final product of the food that we eat. And that's really what sets me apart from most gardeners, is that I'm really taking a scientific approach to getting this food to be the quality that it can be, that's going to nourish us most deeply.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what she's doing. Now, she's got the PhD. I don't. I just got some experience throwing some stuff out of my garden, growing stuff, and having amazing results, having amazing quality food I'm eating, and visiting so many different places that are doing a similar gardening style or practice, which I like to call organic biologic gardening, and I might have to change that soon because organic really doesn't mean much anymore. But I like to, as you guys know that watch me, I like to put in things like rock dust and the kelp meal and the zeolites and all different kinds of varied trace minerals, some kind of ocean solutions, which are all definitely really good. And I kind of use like a shotgun. So like if there's a burglar in my house, I'm not gonna have a 357 Magnum where I gotta like be precise and hit the guy right in the eyes, between the eyes, to take him down or something, right? I just got the shotgun, and if I just put in this general directions when he's breaking my house, boom, I got him. And so that's kind of like how I do with the gardening. Now, I would definitely admit, for me to even dial it in further, right, I should get into what Dr. Bogues is doing and get my stuff tested to see where I am deficient, if I am deficient, and supplement, additional things if possible. Now, with current most standard agriculture testing, you can't test for like all 70 to 90 minerals, but you can test for maybe like 18 minerals in the soil and 10 minerals in the tissue culture. Like if we harvested some dinosaur kale, you could see what's in there. So Dr. Bogues, can you tell us how important it is to test the soil first, and then we'll maybe get into why it's important to test the leaves as well?
Yes, so with the soil, we can put the different nutrients into the soil that they need. And there is a balance. It really is important to get that balance, because that plant is going to uptake different amounts of nutrients depending on what that balance is in the soil. And for maximum health for the plant and for you, you want to have that soil balanced really well, especially with kind of the bigger max nutrients like calcium and magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, copper, things that we need for us to be really healthy. And even some things like silicon that we don't really think about that much. So, testing for molybdenum and cobalt and some of these trace elements that are very important for the health of the soil. I also like to test the soil for the biology in the soil. The fungi, the beneficial bacteria. It's very important to have a good variety of these beneficial microorganisms that are going to help those plants uptake the nutrients. And then, as far as doing the plant leaf tissue, that's also important. And with the soil, that's more of a long-term kind of a process of getting the soil just right. With the leaf tissue, you can put on a foliar nutritional spray, and you can make a change right away. And it improves the quality, flavor, everything. So it's a dual approach to getting the best quality possible. Well, I do like to test the soil ideally every 6 months, and then your leaf tissue whenever you can. I mean, as you start your garden, you can test your soil first, get that amended, then start your plants. And when they come up, you can test the leaf tissue, and every 6 months test your soil and tweak it a little bit and make it better each time. Because a lot of times you can't put everything in the soil all at once that you want to, because that soil is sort of like a digestive system, and it has to take time to assimilate those nutrients, and you have to add more as time goes on.
Right, yeah, I mean, one of the things that my belief is that, it's all the bacteria, the microbes, and so she checks for all this kind of stuff in addition to the different minerals and nutrients, because you kind of need both. If you have a lot of minerals and nutrients, that's great, but if you're missing the microbe component, they're the ones that really break down the nutrients to make it available for the plant. And, once again, in my style, I try not to put like any kind of like manure products that can imbalance your soils and other kind of, nutrients or soil additives that will imbalance your soil and add too much of these macro minerals she's talking about. I really try to focus on the trace minerals, and so I don't really imbalance things too bad, because frankly, I just do gardener's intuition. I got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I really think that by, hopefully getting a test one of these days, I'd be really able to more dial in and even grow my food to higher quality. So Dr. Boggs, I want to talk about, like the nutrients in the food today, like that you buy at the grocery store versus maybe the foods at 100 years ago. I know there's a part in your book, I don't know where it is, but it says they found a 100-year-old can of peaches or something, and they had this 100-year-old can of peaches, and they opened up this 100-year-old can of peaches, and they tested the nutrients in there, and they tested a brand new can of peaches, and there's like a lot more nutrients in 100-year-old peaches that have been sitting around for 100 years than something grown recently. So can you let my viewers know about this? And
Sure, yes. There have been a number of scientific studies that have looked at the databases from like the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture has kept databases on food nutrient density since like the 1930s and 40s. And they keep checking like every year and keep getting these databases up to date. So what some of these scientists have done is compared the data from way back, like in the 1940s, up until recent days, and looked at the differences. And there's a huge drop, sometimes as much as 70% drop in nutrient density for various nutrients. So huge.
yeah, I mean, even things like protein could be 50% higher in something grown in really nutrient-dense soil, and some of the different trace minerals could be up to 50% or even more, higher just in your own garden. Now, I know many people out there might be believing, hey, I use my own compost. I make my compost off my tree clippings and off food scraps. Everything I need is in the compost and the wood chips that I'm bringing into my soil. Now, you know, what are your general comments about, you know, people that are just trying to put compost and believe everything is all right?
Well, the problem is a lot of the things that you're making that compost from are already nutrient deficient. So if you're taking nutrient deficient stuff and trying to put it in, you still have nutrient deficiencies. And you don't really know what you've got until you test it. So, you know, don't guess, test.
Yeah, that would be what she would do in a scientific approach. I would be like, don't just do it, don't test. I would just buy a couple bags of rock dust and some other nutrients that I like to put in and put it in there. In most cases, but not all, it'll probably help in many cases, as I've learned and as many of you guys have learned, because I know a lot of you guys that follow me haven't tested your soil. But I want to encourage you guys, if you want to take your gardening to the next level, and hopefully one of these days I will, and even make a video about it, you know, you want to contact Dr. Bogues and work with her to do soil testing. She does soil testing for, you know, home gardeners, big commercial operations, and, you know, any kind of food or any kind of plant that's growing, she'll help you grow it better. And I think that's really cool. So Dr. Bogues, another thing I want to talk about is, what are like 3 top nutrients that you've seen across the board that's usually deficient in soil that people not necessarily should add, because that might imbalance them depending on where they live, but, you know, might want to think about?
Well, a lot of times the calcium is out of balance. And the calcium to magnesium ratio is the most important ratio for farmers. Actually, that is the determining ratio as to how well they're going to actually manage to make money. It's interesting. So often calcium's low, and just think about it, in our diet and in our nutrition, we need a lot of calcium for strong bones and strong teeth and such like that, and we're just not getting that. So it's important for a strong plant. One of the things that I think people don't think about very much is silicon.
Yep.
And I test for silicon. I think it's extremely important. And most soil analysis just do not ever even think about that. And so that's one of the main things that I would like to get, you know, addressed more appropriately. And other than that, it sort of varies on your area. It varies so much from place to place. Even here on the Big Island of Hawaii, a mile difference, it can be hugely different. It's just so, you know, it's hard to say. We tend to need a lot of phosphorus here. So that's one of the big things. And I do use a soft rock phosphate and recommend that, which is an organic approved amendment.
Right, yeah, so I mean, yeah, definitely would agree. I mean, our backbone is made out of calcium. The plant's backbone is made out of silica. And it's super important to get that in your garden. You know, the rock dust that I like to use has a lot in there, but then also it needs to get basically mobilized by the different microbes in your soil. So actually, let's talk about that. Besides just the minerals, let's talk about the microbes that you might recommend, and how do you recommend putting them into the soil in a more scientific approach than maybe like a shotgun approach using compost tea or some IMOs that you don't know what kind of organisms you're getting when you're brewing it. You know, I don't know. What's your thoughts?
So I have a microscope, and I do check the soil microscopically to see what is there and what's not there, so what we need to do. And often what I see is that there's not enough beneficial fungi.
Yep.
And then, you know, you want more of a diversity of your bacteria too. Those are the typical things I see. So if you're going to guess on that, at least guess toward more fungi. And using a woody compost is going to be the way. And then you can get inoculants to put in there, mycorrhizal fungi, put that in, and that will help you probably best. Best thing to do is get it tested, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I have to go with that. Best thing to do is get it tested. You know, I'm pretty cheap, don't like spending money on tests myself. And that's why, you know, I've had episodes where I go to my friend's house and I see the results of them composting wood chips down and growing in them and having a fungal dominated and maybe not dominated, but fungal rich growing conditions because the bacteria are already there, but the fungi is missing, and having super giant, huge kale leaves. And this is why I recommend you guys out there, you know, we really need fungal dominated compost, and it's very hard to find a fungal dominated compost, you know, that's just a cold process, you know, made with just piled up wood chips that are breaking down slowly over time without any heat. I mean, on this farm here, we had a nice huge pile that's just been sitting there for years, and, you know, the bottom of the layer, nice and black stuff. And even if you want to mulch your pathways and leave them out and it's getting some rain like we are here, you know, that compost will develop naturally just under the layers, like you saw in a couple episodes ago at one of the farms I visited on a wahoo. I mean, this is super critical to add. You know, once again, this is kind of my shotgun approach. If you don't want to do the more maybe beneficial scientific approach, to really dial it in, which, you know, granted, I will admit is probably better than the shotgun approach that I do, because I'm sure I probably got some nutrient deficiencies and stuff, but I'm probably fairly good until I see the stuff and I'm like, oh my God, I could have fixed this 10 years ago because I didn't get it tested. So, you know, if you're serious, definitely you want to get it tested. So, Dr. Bogues, how does a soil test work? Like, you just send in the soil and then they send it to you, you get it analyzed, and then you would basically, hey, put this in, and how would, what you do be different than like a soil laboratory, somebody getting the results from them and then just kind of trying to interpret it themselves?
So what I do is, get the raw numbers from the lab. So the laboratory equipment to do this is extremely expensive. I don't do that part. I send it to a very competent lab that can do these broader spectrum mineral tests. And then they send me the raw numbers, which I interpret for nutrient density. And so it's not only the way you get it tested, there's many different types of tests, there's many different labs, and then you have to go, with a lab that can do all these things and get those raw numbers and then interpret those raw numbers for nutrient density. So there's different ways to interpret things too. And I look at it from a nutritionist standpoint, wanting to get most nutrition for us, not just like fast growth and fast big yield, but good nutrition. And so that's how I approach it. And then, we'll send the analysis back to the person, and it's got on there exactly what was tested, how much of which items you need to add, how to add them, tips on, doing the whole gardening situation. So I really try to have a comprehensive program that someone can actually accomplish.
Yeah, let's talk about that too. I know you recommend, organic approved inputs, to bring your soil back into balance. You're not going to probably recommend, chemically made, synthetic fertilizers. Why don't we talk about this and why that's also important for, growing the most nutrient dense food, but also for people out there and for the planet?
Oh, absolutely. We don't want to be using things that are going to harm the soil. We want to use things that are going to be helpful to the soil. We've got to feed those microbes in the soil. They uptake those nutrients, and then once they turn over in the soil, they die, and then the plants can uptake those nutrients. So they make the nutrients in a plant available form. And so we don't want to put harsh chemical fertilizers in that are going to kill the microflora. We want to take care of them, they take care of the plants take care of us. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about the organic matter that's very important to the soil. What are your thoughts on adding compost to the soil, and will really adding compost add enough nutrition to your soil? I mean, I know I'm kind of asking the same question again because I talked about this a little bit earlier, but there's so many people that do organic gardening or, adding compost, and I add manure and I'm done.
The thing is, compost is good, and I do recommend it. It does need to be the right type of compost. Just like we were talking earlier about bacteria versus fungi, and that's very important in your compost, but also the quality of what materials went in there and what is the nutrient balance of that compost. Just adding compost, and more compost, you can end up with too much potassium and not enough nitrogen. I mean, there's all sorts of things that can happen. So, whereas we do need organic matter in our soil, of course we do, but the thing is that it needs to be in the right balance with everything else.
And the way to know is to get it tested.
That's right, test.
All right, so let's talk about the maximum flavor and maximum nutrition, because that's actually something that's very important to me. And I know some people out there get it. You guys have had that tomato out of your garden that tastes amazing versus the tomato from the store that just tastes like garbage. But what if you could take the tomato that you're already growing in your garden and it could taste 10 times better? So can somebody make the food that they're growing in their garden and even make it taste better by incorporating some of the practices that you advocate and teach?
Absolutely, because when you have a balanced soil, when you're balancing that soil perfectly for the plant, then it can express its full genetic capacity. If it doesn't have nutrients it needs, then it cannot express its full capacity, its full potential, and that's what we want. So, and the flavor compounds are part of that potential.
And let's talk about, besides the flavor compounds, do the yields increase, and are your plants more resilient? Like, if we eat a healthy diet, we're going to be more resilient to getting sick, getting a cold or the flu, and will your plants be more resistant to bugs and disease? And let's talk more about this, like how long it can take to get your plants resistant. Because I mean, in the organic garden, it's like, oh, I grow organically, so I have good soil, so my plants should be immune to stuff. But yet, on some of my plants, I still get aphids, you know?
Yeah. So it is very important to have the soil balanced so that you don't have these problems with pests and diseases. Obviously, giving that plant what it needs, it can be really strong. And insects go after weak plants. They are nature's way of taking out what is not worthy of reproduction. So, you know, it's a beautiful system if you really understand how it works. And so when you give a plant what it wants, what it needs, then it can fully form its proteins, it can fully form its carbohydrates, and that's good food for you. But it's not good food for an insect, because an insect cannot digest these large protein and carbohydrate molecules. It's that they need these fragmented, broken molecules, and that's what a sick plant has. So they go after the sick plants.
Wow, so that's what, like, you know, conventional fertilizers, they basically make these low quality proteins because, you know, a store-bought green bean could have 50% less protein than a homegrown one under, you know, high bricks or mineral, you know, or rich soils and the properly dialed in soil, so that it's not desirable to the pests. And furthermore, then we also get more protein in our diet. That's huge.
One of the things on that is boron. Boron is a trace element that's very important to get your fully formed proteins. And if you don't have that little trace element, then your plant cannot fully form its proteins. It's going to have fragments. It's going to have a poor amino acid balance, which means poor health for it and poor health for you.
So Dr. Bogues, another thing that's very important to me is, you know, besides having good soil, and, you know, I kind of have the belief, if you build it, they will come, right? If you have good soil, you know, your plants will be pretty healthy plants, but this is not always the case. So I want you guys to be able to test, and determine, you know, even if you have the best soil, dialed in soil, you know, if the nutrients are not in your plants, something may not be exactly right. And I use a very rudimentary instrument known as a refractometer, 0 to 32 refractometer, to check the Brix, which will check not only the sugars but also the total dissolved solids, including some of the minerals in there. Which actually I'd been checking some of the food on this island, and I think my let's see, what was the highest one? I had some long-ons that were like 19 on the Brix. Some Chico Sapotes, I think, were like 19 or 20. They're amazing. But, you know, I kind of wonder if they were growing under nutrient, you know, rich, insured with proper testing, how high they could even get to be at their genetic potential. But, you know, besides just doing standard Brix testing, which I recommend all you guys could do, because that's really inexpensive. You get a one-time investment of a $40, $50 Brix tester to test all your stuff to kind of keep track on how you're doing. But how can you actually test, you know, even a carrot or other fruits off your plants to determine, even though your soil is rich, why aren't your fruits rich, or do your fruits and vegetables have the nutrients, Dr. Bogues?
So we can actually test the final end product, like the fruit or like a carrot root or a beet root, and for the nutrient density, just sort of like we do the plant tissue, like the leaf tissue. And so we can see what that final product is giving you and then compare it to USDA. And we've got some stuff coming back like 10 times the amount of certain nutrients. I even had one, that sweet potato, that had 70 times the amount of iron that a typical USDA sweet potato had. It was just amazing. So you really can change the nutrients in the soil, especially, I mean, like micronutrients, because so many farmers don't pay attention to that at all. So when I do my comparisons to USDA databases, a lot of times the micronutrients are much higher. And I kind of say overall, I get about double the nutrient density, but I mean, some things just are hugely different.
Wow, yeah, I mean, if you want to have twice the nutrient density guaranteed, check out Dr. Boggs' work and get some soil testing from her. I mean, I definitely would, you know, encourage you guys to do this. For those of you guys, it's really important. You know, otherwise, if you don't want to get testing, be kind of cheap and save some money, do my approach, and you'll get definitely better, higher quality food, but it may not be quite the best. One of the things that I think Dr. Boggs may fall short on, basically not due to her beliefs or anything, but it's due to current testing out there in the world, is, you know, she will test for 18 different minerals in the soil and like, I don't know, 10 or something minerals in when she does the analysis of the plants. But, you know, I like to add 70 to 90 different trace minerals, and I'm you know, Dr. Bogues, how do we test for the other, you know, unaccounted for 80 minerals or 70 minerals that science really can't test easily or inexpensively at this time?
Right. Yes, there are tests out there, but they are very expensive. And so using something like a refractometer probably will give you a general indication of the nutrient density overall. There are limitations to the refractometer use, but I have used it quite a bit even in scientific work. And one thing that's really interesting, and I don't know if you've seen this in my book yet, but there's this whole thing about getting your Brix level up, and then also looking at blood glucose in the human.
Oh.
And so that in my PhD work in the university, I actually did some of this work. And I looked at apple orchards and compared cultivations between different apple orchards. And the apples that were the most well taken care of and had the most nutrition in them had the highest Brix level. And you would think, okay, high Brix, that means high sugar, and that's going to mean more of a glucose spike with your blood sugar. But that's not what happened. Even though they tasted sweeter, they actually tested that they were higher Brix and had more sugar. They had a lower glycemic response.
Wow.
Yes, amazing, just amazing. So, I mean, that's some of the charts that you'll see in my book. And of course, we need to do a lot more research on that. But this is kind of the edge. This is the cutting edge of research.
Well, I mean, imagine if we had high quality food, and I mean, if we had high quality food and everybody ate a healthy diet without processed foods and junk foods and animal foods in excess, you know, there wouldn't be any type 2 diabetes, in my opinion. But even so, some people are affected, and imagine if they had high quality apples that didn't affect their blood glucose as bad, you know. And we don't need genetically engineering to solve these issues. We just need good soil to grow the highest quality food. Some of the research that I've seen about actually this topic is because there's some different polyphenols and some nutrients in the apples that actually slow down the absorption of the sugars in the apples, you know. So it's self-regulating on its own if they're in there, and they're not going to be in there if your soil is deficient, because now the apple or the whatever fruit or vegetable can't be at its full genetic potential and be fully expressed with all the nutrients that God, nature, or whomever, you know, wants us to have in our bodies that are not in there because we've abused the planet so much. Dr. Bogues, now I know some of my viewers might want to get their soil tested now, but I know some of them are pretty cheap asses like I am. What are some general practices that you can recommend to people out there? Maybe like 3 practices that somebody could start doing today to hopefully increase the quality of their food without getting the soil too far out of balance. Because I know you're going to say it's really important to test, but I want you to give my viewers some ways to do it without testing for those of you guys that just absolutely can't afford it or don't want to do it for whatever reason.
So, you know, John, what you've put out there about using things like good quality compost and rock dust and worm castings, kelp, those kinds of things, I do recommend those regularly to my clients. And those are almost always good and almost never going to cause a problem.
I mean, I agree, and that's why I share these things with you guys, because I'm not the scientist, but we do have one on the show today. So I know many of you guys out there are just home growers like me, and you're just growing for your own home use, but I know there's also many of you guys out there might be market growers, might be growing for, you know, to market, or even big farms, a big farmer finding this video. And I want to encourage you guys, you know, like you need to differentiate your product. I went to school for marketing. That's my degree. I don't have a degree in nutrition or horticulture or anything. I have a degree in marketing, so I try to like educate you about doing the best stuff and try to let you guys know about how to grow the best. But I also believe that to really make a change in the society, besides everybody growing their own food, the people that do grow the food for us, because unfortunately, as much as I would like everybody in the world to take part in their own food they eat by growing some, everybody's not going to do that. So I think that, you know, farms definitely need to grow, you know, something different and have a little competitive advantage, you know. And I think the best competitive advantage personally is growing beyond organic. Because when somebody tastes something that tastes better, you don't gotta sell it. You know, I visited a nutrient-dense grower back in Minnesota, and he had asparagus, and most people hate asparagus, right? he's there giving free asparagus samples to people walking by, and people grab it. Wow, that's the best asparagus ever tasted. And I said that too. It was the best asparagus I tasted, and I bought a couple bunches from him, even though I was only in town a couple more days. I mean, and then you could charge a higher price because you have a higher quality, a better tasting food. It'll also yield more, but also have more nutrition. So, Dr. Bogues, do you want to comment on this this point?
Absolutely. This is a huge new marketing edge that people, especially farmers and market gardeners, can capitalize on. And I know there's people out there selling 3 to 10 times the price higher because it's nutrition grown. You know, it's got the nutrients in there. You can use it as a marketing edge, and the flavor will come through, and that's why people buy it too. You know, and they realize it tastes better. You know, these chefs that want high-end stuff, they will pay that extra price. And you know, we need to get this kind of growing going all over, and the farmer needs to make a good living so that they can, you know, afford to farm and afford to do the things they need to do for their soil so that it can be the best and give the best nutrition to people. They need to get paid for that, and they can if they have this marketing edge and promote it as nutrition-grown foods.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that's very important to me, I know some of you guys that are market farmers and all this kind of stuff and grow for market and you're making a living off this, is you always think the dollar signs, you know, what if this is going to cost me too much money, you know, and why should I do this? And, you know, how much extra money, if you've done research on this, is it going to cost a farmer to like implement some of these practices and actually grow higher food, and will they make up for it, you know, in selling for a higher price?
Well, the thing is too, yes, it does cost money to test your soil, but you're going to be putting amendments in, and you better put the right amendments in, because the amendments are going to cost a lot more than any testing or any consulting you're going to have done. The big price comes when you get, you know, to put all those amendments in. So get the best test you can get done, and then get your soil fixed. And after that initial investment, and it is an investment in your soil to get it where it's growing well, then you just have to tweak it after that. Just a little tweaks. Once you've got it balanced, and then it's going to just produce so much more produce, so much better quality produce. You're going to have so much less problems with insects and diseases and all of that, that yes, it does pay off.
I mean, I totally agree. I mean, one of the things that I teach my home gardeners that are watching is, you know, every time I buy something to put in my soil, the rock dust, the worm castings, you know, the compost teas, you know, the zeolite, anything I put in, right? I'm literally putting money in the bank. This is the bank of the plant, of nutrition that I'm going to be growing into the plant. The more nutrients in a non-water soluble form, you know, that I could put in, the more money I have in the bank that it can draw from later. When you're buying, you know, synthetic fertilizers that are water soluble, guess what? You water them in, some of it gets absorbed, and a lot of it washes away. So you're just, you know, you're just like flushing money down the toilet when you're doing water soluble fertilizers, like some even gardening styles recommend, that I definitely don't recommend. So do you have any comments on this, Dr. Bogues?
Oh, some of these chemical type fertilizers are very detrimental to the microbiology in the soil, and also they do tend to lock up in the soil. So there's a quick release, but there's also a quick lockup. And what we're looking for is a good long-term functional soil.
I mean, I agree. I think we'll end on that note. Like, we want a nice functional soil. Now, whether you want to go and get soil tested to really make sure you got it dialed in, or whether you want to do more of a shotgun approach, I mean, the main message to this video is to grow more nutrient-dense foods however you can. You know, if you're adding compost and you think that's going to get it for you, I mean, I would disagree with you, but what I would say is try to use different source inputs for your compost, and don't always use the same grass clippings. You know, get grass clippings, get plants from here, plants from there, because those plants will have different, probably, you know, deficiently grown, you know, nutrients in there, and that's why really dialing it in, adding things like the rock dust, probably the best of all. But of course, gotta say, you should get tested if you want to do the real best, and one of these days I will. So if you guys want to buy Dr. Jana Bogues' book, it's right here. You want to check her out at her website, beyondorganicconsulting.com. She does consult farmers, gardeners, and has her amazing book available in an ebook format. If you don't want to have a paper copy, I would recommend a paper copy. It's really nice. You could really read it. I mean, she even talks about, like, you know, rabbit feeding studies, comparing them, you know, just by adding something as simple as calcium and growing nutrient dense, how much bigger the animals were that were grown. So, I mean, even if you're growing for feed or whatever, growing higher nutrient quality produce will work every single time in every single instance. So do you have any final comments for my viewers today, Dr. Bogues?
Well, I would encourage you, if you can at all afford it, to get your soil tested and also your plants tested. And this is for your health, and your health is so important. It's an investment in your health and your life and your children's lives.
I mean, I want to say it, I almost lost my life when I was younger, and, you know, when I was in the hospital, the doctors told me that I might not make it out alive. I didn't want all the money in the world. All I simply wanted was my health, and your health is your greatest wealth. And, you know, I believe people should put their money where their mouth is and start investing in your health. That means soil testing, which now I'm probably going to have to do now because to stay true to my words. You know, to dial in what I'm doing to make it even better. I think I'm all for it, and I'm probably going to have to do it. So probably stay tuned for an upcoming episode where I'll get my soil tested by Dr. Bogues, and you can see the results of my soil and my shotgun approach, but how I could even dial it in further and, you know, get even better and more successful results. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also, be sure to check my past episodes. I have over 1,050 episodes now. And be sure to subscribe if you're not already for upcoming episodes on how to grow the highest quality, nutrient-dense foods at home through a wide variety of ways when I have fun and able to visit all kinds of farms from around the world and maybe even just filming episodes from my backyard. Once again, my name is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep on growing. All right, this is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode, and aloha. I'm still here in beautiful Hawaii on the Big Island, and this is another exciting episode for you, and I'm really excited about this one. You know, as you guys know that watch me, or maybe this is the first video you guys are watching me, but I teach an organic